Hi, I'm Arjuna Durant. I'm 36 years old and I'm based in Detroit, Michigan, in the United States.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Herstory TV and the Herstory podcast. This is Gertrude Butcher here in beautiful Wellington, New Zealand, and I am graced with the presence of yet another creative young woman coming to me all the way from the United States. Welcome to our tribe. Tell everybody your full name, where you're based, how old you are, and share your story with us today.
Hi, I'm Arjuna Durant. I'm 36 years old and I'm based in Detroit, Michigan, in the United States. And I started my business in December. I launched in December of 2020. So in the midst of the coronavirus pandemic, I had actually been waiting tables. It's something that I started doing in high school, how I paid my way through college, and then how I kind of supported myself as an artist for most of my adult life. And then when restaurants were shut down last March of 2020, I lost my job and found myself at home with my 2-year-old son. And, just so many unknowns when childcare would reopen, when restaurants would reopen, if people would come back to restaurants, it would still be a way to support myself. And so I decided to take the art that I make as a hobby and turn it into a business. So I launched Udo Designs, which is named after my grandmother. And I design and make hand-stitched leather bags out of my home studio. So you can see I'm up in my attic right now. This is where I work. And I have an e-commerce site where I do most of my sales, and then also starting to have wholesale accounts and local boutiques, and hopefully expanding from there.
Wow. It's been really interesting to see how entrepreneurs are reacting and responding to the pandemic, really being forced to be creative in terms of how we sell our product, how we reach the world. I'm sitting here in Wellington, New Zealand, talking to you in the United States, and hopefully your brand will come out this far as well. What has been the biggest challenge for you as an entrepreneur to get the word out?
I think it's the isolation. I don't know. I think New Zealand's probably pretty different because I know you guys had the virus kind of contained pretty quickly, but here we're just recently starting to have the lockdown restrictions lifted. And so it's really just been me alone in my attic, or like Zooming with friends, trying to get feedback on this product it's something that you use really intimately. But I couldn't have those conversations with customers or coworkers or anyone in person. So it made it really challenging. And then also just, self-doubt creeping in when you're all alone. I think that's a really big challenge that comes with isolation, and not having that collaboration that I'm so used to.
Oh, wow. But what has been the most rewarding feeling so far, branching out into this new thing? I mean, did you grow up with this craft? How did you learn? Where did the inspiration come from?
Yeah, my dad was a leather worker, and he had his own leatherworking business for a short time. It wasn't something that he pursued for very long, just because he found that it wasn't making enough money for him to sustain. But he handed down a few of his old, like now antique handworking tools to me, which is really sweet to use. He didn't really teach me a lot about leatherworking until I started picking it up on my own. I was actually living in California when I started, and he was here in Michigan. And so I was mostly self-taught, read a lot of books, experimented a lot. But then I moved back to Michigan in 2016 and have been able to lean on him for advice and new techniques and stuff like that.
Wow. That's just awesome. So I take it as probably already in your veins, in your DNA to be creative. You just had to find a time where you were challenged to use it, right?
Yeah, it's always been, I mean, I've always made things, I've always made clothes and bags, but I've never really committed to trying to support myself with it. That was the main difference.
Fantastic. So as a brand, where are you seeing yourself being, let's say a year, 2, 3 years from now?
Um, I would love to be available in shops across the United States within the first 3 years. To be international and even as far as New Zealand, I think will take a little longer than that. But that would be incredible if that could happen eventually. Yeah, so just growing slowly. I still don't have any childcare right now besides my mom helps out once a week. So at the pace that I can actually find time to work, I have to, balance those two things. But hopefully my son will be able to start daycare in the fall when things are safe. And then I can continue to expand and grow as I'm able to.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question actually is, how are you juggling, handling being a young mom with a small child, starting a new business? So at least you've got a bit of support from your mom, but it's not easy, right?
It's not easy, no. It's definitely the most challenging thing, but also the most rewarding thing in the world. He's so sweet and just brings so much joy to every day that, it's the biggest motivation you could have hope for. And yeah.
So you're having to juggle and kind of work your work around him as well. When he's asleep, you get some work done.
Absolutely. His naps after he goes to bed at night are my most productive times. I'll bring him up. I have my studio set up where I have my work side and then a little play area beside it. But every time I have him up here to play, he just runs over and says, I want to help you. I want to help you. And then you can imagine how helpful a 2-year-old is.
Now, what would be your advice to another young mom who is going through the same challenge based on what you've done this year, launching this new business? There might be somebody else thinking about the same thing who has a young child. What advice would you give them?
I would just say go for it. You stumble a lot along the way. There's so much that I have to learn. But there's really nothing that I could be doing in terms of work that would be more fulfilling for this, following your creative passion. I actually love every moment that I get to spend working on my business. And a lot of people don't have, a career that can bring them that much like joy. So yeah, I think if you have a dream or, a business that you wanted to pursue, even if you're juggling, childcare and in this crazy moment in the world, just, take the first step. And whenever you have time, just chip away at it.
Mhm. Now, I've seen some of your bags, some of your pieces are just absolutely exquisite, and we're going to have them in the article we'll publish in the Herstory magazine. My curiosity is, where does the inspiration come from for each of those pieces? They're all so unique.
Thank you. I'm so glad you like them. It's really just a hands-on process for me. I sketch a lot, but I really don't know what a bag is going to look like until I just start cutting and sewing. And a lot of the time I'll have, I think because I'm not formally trained, this probably plays a role in it, but like I'll have a vision of what I want to make. And then as I start putting it together and creating it, I'll just like naturally run in this whole different direction. So I just try and be really like open-minded with myself and with the process and just like let my creative juices flow and see where it takes me. I think I start really just open like that and then kind of refine things and perfect them after like that first really exciting bag comes out.
That must be quite a liberating feeling, because then you have nothing that's set that it should look like. Your creativity is more pronounced, I guess, because you don't have those restrictions and you're not held back by any expectations from anywhere or from anyone.
Yeah, I mean, I will say there's definitely been many, many times where I've finished a bag and looked at it and just thought it was terrible and it goes on like a pile of rejects. So they don't all turn out well. But yeah, it is really freeing just to kind of go in and experiment and see what I come up with.
Oh, I absolutely love this. So if I was to take you to your future, 100 years from now, let's say you do live to 130, based on how you're living your life, what would you say to that older woman? Because you're really carving a very new way of being an entrepreneur. You have created something out of literally nothing because of necessity. What kind of a conversation do you think you would have with her?
Oh, that's such an interesting question. I've really never thought about anything like that before. I mean, something that I try and keep just in my daily practice and remember is just to be kind to myself and, support myself. I think it's really common for women, we feel so much judgment and so much pressure from society to focus on our flaws or where we feel we're not good enough.
Yeah.
And I think it's really important to just be present and grateful and accepting and loving toward every part of you. So yeah, I don't know. It would be wonderful to talk to that older version. I'm sure I'd have so much to learn from her. Maybe I just listen more than talk. I don't know.
Yeah, because I have a belief that we're all born with a knowing of the things we're supposed to do in life, and that you've already created the future, because not everybody will get up and get a piece of leather and make a handbag, right? There's something about you, there's something that's in you that was already predestined in your DNA. And sometimes when you're trying to figure it out, you can't have a conversation with the future you and say, hey, I'm trying to create the business. How did we do it? Absolutely love this. So where can people buy your bags right now?
Right now, my e-commerce site, which is udodesigns.com. My business is named after my grandmother, who was Danish. So the spelling is not very intuitive to a lot of people with the pronunciation, but it's JYTTE designs.com.
Okay. So what I'll do is I will put a link in the magazine and on this podcast so people can get hold of you. Good luck, much success to this new business venture. Please keep in touch with us. And thank you to everybody who's tuned in. So the Chinese have a word for the word crisis. It's written with two symbols. One stands for danger, the other stands for opportunity. So COVID pandemic has presented us with some magical opportunities. And for those people who are seeing it, like yourself, they're opening small businesses, they're finding ways to work around their family and their children. So if you are an entrepreneur out there, please take this story as a source of inspiration. Trust yourself, try things out. And like you said, it may not always work out, but at least you have tried. So tune in again tomorrow, everybody. I'll be back with yet another amazing guest. Have a fantastic day wherever you are in the world. And thank you again for the interview.
Thank you.
Bye for now, everybody.